Recording.
All right, good. All right, welcome everybody. This is the Wiehle Avenue study group. Gosh, it is May, and so welcome everybody. Tonight we were going to try to have a nice discussion based on of our last meeting. I think we made a lot of progress at the last meeting, getting people's input, and tonight we were hoping to maybe take a little deeper dive for some of you, for some of your thoughts and ideas that you have. Some of them could be inspirational, and others could just be, uh, you know, coming off of from where you were the last meeting. And for those who didn't attend the last meeting, maybe now's the time to you could, give us your input on what you think are, some of the best ideas for, for this area. So, Lori, it sounds like she has some stuff to share on a screen, and I gave Jose some graphics to post at the right time, but. But with that, let me turn it back over to Lori, and we could talk a little bit about what we want to accomplish tonight.
Super. Thank you so much, Rob. Yeah, I'm very excited about tonight. So we want to go around and have everybody share their views, their visions. If you've got pictures, we want you to share your screen, which is why I asked if I could practice sharing my screen ahead of time. If you run into the same trouble I did just now and have to fiddle with it for a little bit, there's two ways to get around it. One is go offline for a minute or two and fiddle with it and figure it out and then come back and share. Or the other one is to send your information to Jose and let him share for. And if there's participants in the audience as well, I'd love to get those ideas too. This is a brainstorming session. So remember brainstorming sessions like way back? There's rules about brainstorming sessions, right? You can't say things like, well, that's unreasonable, right? You have to just go, wow, okay, that's a different point of view. So everybody's going to get a chance. Everybody's ideas are welcome. And I just kind of wanted to start this with a kind of a preview of what we're thinking of in terms of the whole space and the whole transportation modality of the entire space, not just the campus commons space, and show you what I was starting to put down on paper. And as we understand it, because again, I'm very visual, I need to see where things would go and the numbers that we're talking about in each of these areas. We've asked several times for a complete picture of that, and that's not something that is readily accessible for some reason. The other thing I want to do is just take you through my pictures of what exists today. So when we talk about an intersection, we'll know it. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if Jose will give me permission. He's turned off, so I'm not 100%. There he goes. Share my screen number 2. Okay. And I'm going to take that off the screen. Is the areas that we're talking about. So originally we were just talking about this area and this crosswalk up here. Can everybody see my pointer? Is that something you can all see? So just kind of nod your head if you can. Okay, so and now we have some information about what's going in here. I know we have information about this, but I don't know it if we can find it out. My daughter lives in the apartments over here, so I know there's apartments over there. This is what's being built right now, this high-rise area over here, and what's going in there, right? We were going to ask questions like, is that retail? Is there, is this where the movie theater's going, or is the hotel and the movie theater going over here? Sort of, if anybody has a better picture of this and some of these ideas of some of these numbers of traffic that would be going through these areas, that would be something I'd be interested in. So how are these folks down here in Campus Commons going to get over to the high-rise area, and maybe there's shopping over here? How's that going to happen? You know, and Rob, I'm really excited to hear your ideas because you had some thinking along here, and I can't wait to hear it. Then these people who are in here, if they want to jump on the Wnod Trail and start riding one morning because it's right here, how are they safely going to get across? And I understand that there's already something in the works that's been funded or not for this area. And so
there is a crossing that's been funded, and it's should be under construction in the next 6 months, Tom. I don't have the most recent timeline.
Yes, it's in land acquisition right now. It'll be under construction this summer.
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
So there'll be an overpass with access to Wiehle Avenue if you're along the trail and want to get to Wiehle Avenue from either side.
That's awesome. And then there's apartments, I know they're going into Isaac Newton Square over here, but I didn't have room to put it in. And I don't know what's happening here, if this is just going to stay the way it is, so I kind of wanted to show this picture, because when you guys go east on Wiehle, and is that before or after the, you know, this set of apartments? For me, it's much easier just to come to this screen and say, you know, it's over here. It's over here. So the other thing I wanted to show everybody was just where we are today. Sorry. So where we are today with Wiehle, right now we have this, and we already know that that would be eliminated, and we would be walking down here and crossing if we're coming from Upper Lake Drive, but that this would be completely revamped. And then the next picture, I'm sorry, that was coming out of my house. This is going up on Wiehle. Oops, now I have it backwards. Sorry, guys. This is crossing Wiehle. You know, this is how many lanes it is. And we've seen these pictures before because we've walked this area. But how this is going to lay out, you know, is part of this going to be taken for walking or for bicycling? Is that what some of you all are thinking? How are people going to get across this section safely if we're walking here? How does it look to go from one side of Wiehle to another? That's sort of a daunting task. And, you know, this is originally the thing that brought us all to the table, was this crosswalk that was put here. And then getting across this bridge on the east side, that is this bridge right here on the east side. So that, for me, is really, you know, are we talking about using this space somehow? Because we can't, as Tammy kept saying, we cantilever something off of this edge. And then there's another area here for people who are, you know, finishing their walk across to get to the high-rise area that's being built over here. And I'm just wondering, is that enough? Is that what we're thinking is enough to get our people safely across? So that, then the last thing that I looked at was this what you say is being built. This is the Wnod Trail. I know it attracts a lot of people. I know that a lot of the developers are promoting the fact that Reston is a mobile area where you can walk and bike. And so this is part of the marketing materials that are being used, is promoting Reston. So it is something that short-term and long-term we want to take care of. And then going back, if we have the Isaac Newton Square here and this new fire station all going up, how do we get back safely? So that's the area that we're going to be talking about tonight. And at any time, if any of you needs these pictures to reorient yourself or describe something, please, I'm happy to share this with you. We talked about, I'm not going to talk about what I want to see. I'm going to see what everybody else has to say and get started. So do we have a guinea pig that wants to get started? I will stop sharing my screen.
Okay, I'll be the guinea pig. Maurice.
All right,
So
Maurice.
your very first picture, Lori, showed that intersection, the existing intersection of Sunrise Valley Drive and Wiehle Avenue. That remains for me a major concern because the developer proposes only to have the existing crosswalks. There needs to be a third crosswalk on the east side.
So tell me where that is, Maurice.
If you are walking along Sunrise Valley Drive, headed toward the International Center, okay, if you know where that is,
Yep.
up the hill, okay.
Can you follow my, is that where my mouse is?
Yes.
Okay.
At that point, if you want to go to the midline development, which will have retail. Midline is a one on between Sunrise Valley, between Sunset Hills and the Dallas Toll Road.
Okay. I'm circling it on my screen.
As it now is contemplated, you have to go on the west side of Wiehle over the Dulles Toll Road and then cross back over Wiehle at Reston Station Boulevard. There needs to be a crosswalk at Sunrise Valley Drive on the east side because the county has already talked about having a pedestrian passageway on the bridge over the toll road, whether that means narrowing the existing lanes to add a pedestrian passageway or cantilevering a pedestrian bridge off of the existing Wiehle Bridge. So people can get over to the midline development without having to cross Wiehle Avenue. That is a major concern. It's a major, in my estimation, a major deficit that the developer was allowed to present the intersection of Sunrise Valley and Wiehle with only 2 of 3 potential crossings provided for. Okay, that's it.
Did we capture that for you here?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. I'm going to take notes, but I can't take notes and present. Is there anybody else?
So, Jose, I just sent you a graphic that's maybe a little bit better overview showing all the developments in this quadrant. That
Awesome.
might help people.
Yeah, I'm happy to put it on the screen. Give me one.
Okay.
minute.
Yeah, it may take a little bit of time from the memory standpoint, but
All right. Maurice, did you have any other ideas about how you wanted to do it? Perfect.
Not really. I've got a big picture idea, but I'll save that till later.
Okay. Well, I like big picture ideas. That's what we're supposed to be going in for.
All right, you asked for it. If this were being done in a progressive, socialistic, democratic socialistic country, the air rights over Wiehle Avenue would come into play. And we would end up with a park very much like Gateway Park in Roslyn, connecting the quadrants on the south side of the Dallas Toll Road, both the southwest quadrant and the southwest and the southeast quadrants. There would be a big park. So people living or shopping in the Campus Commons development would be able to walk unimpeded over through a beautiful park. Wiehle Avenue would become a tunnel over into the Comstock development that's coming where Commerce Park now exists. But that's not going to happen. I'm just saying, if this were being done properly, that would become a beautiful park. How many of you have been to Gateway Park? Gateway Park links the Key Bridge Marriott with Greater Roslyn, including the metro station. I-66 goes under it. It's a nice park. Roslyn has many events there, movies, jazz festivals. That's what the potential is here. But unless the county were to change course and spend a lot of money and force the developers to spend a lot of money to make that into a park and convert Wiehle Avenue into a tunnel between Sunrise Valley and the toll road, it's not going to happen. But that would be my dream for this area. It could be a drawing card for all of Reston and beyond.
You know, Maurice, hey, it's Michelle. There's a movement right now to cap interstates to reconnect cities that have been divided by interstates. And they're doing one in Richmond, and they're doing one in a couple of other places too, where you wouldn't even necessarily need to make Wiehle into a tunnel. Instead, what we need to do is basically build a new park on top of the toll road in between Campus Commons and Midline. And you would just basically put a cap on top of the toll road that would be just for pedestrians and turn it into a park. But there might be a way to do it if we actually had some creative developers who really wanted to connect the city, and we got some private and public partnership. You know, there's a lot of infrastructure money right now generated from the administration in the White House. I think that, you know, again, if we wanted to be creative and a bit more radical, we could do something neat, because the Dulles Toll Road has absolutely divided our community. And so it would be nice to reunite it and to have that as a section, that maybe the first one, try it right here at Campus Commons in Midline, and then see if we can't get some more caps to hide that ugly toll road.
That would be fantastic. And short of that, actually the elevations down there would support a tunnel going under the toll road, linking Campus Commons down toward the eastern end of it over to the Midline development. You could put a tunnel there under the Dulles Toll Road, which would be a lot cheaper than building a above ground thing. Now, above ground would be more beautiful. I couldn't agree more. I can remember when Reston was first looking at what was going to happen when Metro came. This was back in I would say the early 80s. And there were visions of air rights over the Dulles Toll Road, not at this location, but between Reston Parkway and the current site of the Reston Town Center Metro Station. That was all going to be a park or buildings. You'd be driving a toll road, you would hit what amounts to a tunnel, like going on 66 past Roslyn, and above it would be parks and apartments and stores and liveliness. You're right, the toll road is a scar that divides Reston, and anything we can do to soften it, I'd be much in favor of. Thank you, Michelle, for that idea.
Yeah, Jose, if you let me share my screen, I can show you what they're I think aiming to do in Richmond.
I just looked at Gateway Park in Roslyn and looked at the images on my computer. It's amazing.
And I will just chime in here, Maggie Parker. It's a great idea, Michelle. The one of the big issues that we have right here is that is federal turf. So air rights are owned by the feds, but it would be terrific to tackle that big river that runs through us. Thank you.
Has anyone tried to do this? Are you saying that it's it's been tried and it's
Dude.
failed, or it's just seen as not worth the effort?
Well, you know what? Let's not push down any of our ideas yet. Remember, we're brainstorming. So let's think.
No, I'm just curious though, like, is it
And
that it hasn't happened? Like, is it that someone looked into it and it wasn't going to be possible at all? I think it'd be good to know. Yeah.
Well, I think that the conversations have come up. I think that with every administration change or with every passing time period, the conversation could change. I don't think it's happened recently. And Lori, I'm not knocking anything down. I'm just saying I love brainstorming, but it's great to put it within a realm of realism. That's all.
Well, I think this has been incorporated in some other cities more recently, not just this one that I'm showing. So perhaps
I
it
agree,
still
but they
worth-
weren't federally owned. That is,
With COVID, the change and the new bill that's gone out, Michelle, I think you have something there. It may be something that is supported, but again, we're trying to put limits on our brainstorming.
You know, one thing I've been curious about that I'd like to hear from more is I've noticed we've had, I think, a pretty significant representation from the biking community in our group. And I would just love to get a better idea of what it is that you guys have wanted to see from this area, because you seem, very interested in this group, but I haven't quite figured out, what your vision is.
Michelle, you're speaking my language. This is Rob. I did do a graphic that might help put a little bit of an answer to that. So if you don't mind, I maybe I could throw mine in here. Jose, I sent you. Now I forget what they were called, but there was two graphics. One was a sketch, and one was.
Did you want the SketchUp or did you want the
yeah,
aerial?
I think the sketch is good.
Okay.
Sorry, I should have remembered what they were labeled. All right, so this is a crude sketch. Wow, it really gets whited out on the screen, but it's trying to look down on the intersection at Wiehle and the toll road. Actually, if we could zoom in maybe a little bit and maybe not try to capture so much of it, maybe that'll help it. But the idea was the colors, the bands of colors on the sides are representing bike lanes in green and walkways in kind of a yellow. And the idea was, and you'll see in some other graphics maybe later, my vision for the area is multimodal. And my vision for the area is to take Wiehle and make it narrower, where we can still have functional lanes that need to do what they need to do, but have a way to make it less of a crossing width, and then also provide a lot more, a multimodal approach where bike lanes and walkway lanes would be on the sides, not on the roads like the bike lanes are now. Most of us have heard this concept of the cyclotrack along Sunrise Valley Drive. And that's been kind of hit or miss the way that's been implemented. And one of the things that's not done so well with that is it doesn't have the rest of the connectivity to the other roadways that Sunrise Valley connects to. This would be kind of taking that concept of bike lanes and walkway lanes and then taking them the whole way across the toll road. There'd be either a new bridge, the likely would be a new bridge attached to the vehicular bridge. And as Marie said, we need to connect over to midline. We need to connect over, and both sides need to have, the ability to get from one side to the other, because not everybody's going to go to Metro in the future. There's going to be a lot of cross connection north and south along Wiehle Avenue, and that's going to continue at every intersection. And that's why I'm an advocate of crosswalks instead of bridges and underpasses, because we're going to have this repetitive intersection where we have the same challenge where people want to go east, west, north, south, bike, scooter, baby carriage, whatever, and we just need to kind of slow the traffic down. We need to make our streets more fun and approachable. And I'm showing lighting, I'm showing some flags, I'm showing some a lot of landscaping, and just a way to bring this to scale. Where today we have such a suburban answer that's out there today, we want to make it more of an urban and a nice streetscape that people would really enjoy to be along. So, Jose, there's one more graphic that I had that was more of a sketch that I got online that might maybe be a little bit more of an indicator. So this is this might have been out in the state of Washington, but this is a similar kind of concept. If you could almost picture yourself at the Wiehle toll road intersection, and just the idea here is you have approaching walkways and bike lanes coming at the corners, and you just need to continue both of those across the intersections in some manner that the bikers know where to go, the pedestrians know where to go, and then most important, that the drivers know what the expectation is, where people are going to be consistently. And you can do that with color. You can do it with a lot of different things. And there's a lot of communities, and especially in Florida and other areas of the country, that are color coding their walkways and crosswalks to where they can then be safer and effective. And then you add the signalization, obviously, you add some really prominent lighting, and you keep all the sight lines really where everybody can see one another. But the real key to this is you make the intersection radiuses narrow or smaller, so that less speed going around curves. You're really just trying to slow everybody down and make sure that they're looking for pedestrians, looking for bikes, looking for other modes of transportation. And that's kind of what I envision as a lot of these intersections along Wiehle Avenue could actually could look like.
Jose, can you increase the size of that a little bit more so that we can see? I'm in particular interested in what that little black mark is on the, where it shows, I guess it's picture of a bike wheel or something. So the bikes, I assume, are passing on the inside next to the cars, and that's the green. And okay.
See, I like this one because the pedestrians are separated from the bikes, it looks like. As somebody who walks more than I bike, I have to admit, being too close to the bike lane is a concern.
Correct. Yeah.
Can you follow the bike lane with your mouse for me? So just and the green is just okay. And that's what you're doing with your picture, that is putting the trees, though, separating the street from the bikes from the people. And here you have the bikes and the trees and the people.
Yeah, you can do it, kind of different ways. Obviously, it depends on the room you end up having. The beauty along Wiehle is there is sufficient room to narrow and do a lot of things on either side with the right dimension and the right approach to it. Obviously, when you get closer to the bridge, it's a little bit more of a challenge because you have greater turn lanes for the toll road. But it's an idea.
It is an idea. Thank you for spending time and working on this, Rob.
Hey, Lori, can I just take this opportunity to remind the group that these are really awesome ideas, and that part of the phase 2 of this study eventually will be to study the corridor and come up with a plan that incorporates some of these elements that you all are talking about, including looking at how to facilitate pedestrian bicycle access on the east side, all the way from Sunrise Valley to the Wnod Trail. I know we've brought it up before, but I just wanted to remind everybody.
Do you have any pictures you can share with us? Have you looked at it at all?
The study has not commenced. We would start that It hasn't started yet, so we're glad to hear
And that's
all of these
the unfortunate
ideas.
part, huh? That we have to plan part of it without studying all of it.
Yeah. So is there somebody else who has some inspirational pictures or thoughts on this?
I think Connie had a
Well,
physical
well,
hand up.
well, I just wanted to follow up with what Mark just said. I appreciate what you're saying, Mark. Somehow, somebody's got to get enough of a vision in mind so that whatever developers are still left that don't have their plans approved yet, we got to find a way to get them to help chip in. That's all.
That's it. That's a wonderful thought. Thank you, Connie. Yeah.
It's Brian. Can I offer an additional piece of information here?
Sure.
One thing to keep in mind, and I certainly defer to Mark and others at County DOT if they want to chime in on this as well. But we of course spend a lot of time working through during the rezoning application process on various scenarios for the intersection at Sunrise Valley Drive and Wiehle. And also on the crosswalk at the toll road ramps and what the configuration would look like. And per our proffers, as everybody in the group knows, we're committed to build those improvements, particularly the Wiehle and Sunrise Valley Drive intersection improvements, which are to be built before any portion of the development is occupied. But I also wanted to just point out that the right-of-way area is controlled by VDOT. And so just because a creative solution that everybody in the study group may endorse or may sort of coalesce around is different from what's shown on our development plan doesn't mean that it can't be implemented. So, we're obligated under the approvals and the proffers to dedicate certain right-of-way and build certain improvements. But VDOT can always do what it wants to do in its right of way. And so what we're doing is not, or what we would do as part of our development is not ultimately going to preclude any of these other more creative solutions, particularly if it's along the lines of Rob's concept of narrowing the lanes. That's already going to be within the existing right of way.
Thank you, Brian. I like all these ideas. Next idea person.
I think Vanilla had a hand. Vanilla, you can unmute.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I wanted to frame it ever so slightly differently. A lot of the same things that I'd be interested in have already been expressed. I wanted to frame it more as principles that we would follow through this corridor. But I also wanted to tie it to the reality of how things get done on our roadways. And before I start, an example was cited of the protected bike lane that's going in on Sunrise, it being disconnected, but that's specifically to do with the realities of how we get things installed. And so if there's a desire for something profoundly, completely different, there also has to be a discussion of a profoundly and different way of doing things, like brand new mechanisms that don't exist right now. But anyway, my basic principles are always safety, and that's safety of all users, people of all ages and abilities, however they're getting around, whatever age they are, whether they're young, old, whatever device they're using. And that can be self-propelled wheels. It can be various types of motorized wheels. It can be adults pushing other people. But it's also about shifting that priority in your design to the people who are outside of the vehicles, the motorized vehicles. And that's really what we don't see right now. And then as soon as you do that in your design, you're going to want to control speeds of vehicles and reassign space and reclaim it from vehicles and shift it to the other users. And then you can do all those things. Part of why people don't like when they have to share space between pedestrians and bicyclists is it's really too narrow for these multiple uses. Some of the nice designs we saw were to do with having more space assigned to different user groups. But also, I always think that our real ace out here in the suburbs is one of the most difficult things for projects is right away. It's obtaining right away. And I always say, we already have it because we already have everything as wide as can be. So that is one of our opportunities. But, you know, the basic principles where you're designing for the people so that they're not exposed to the high levels of risk associated with speed. They're not being made to wait longer than is reasonable. They're not being made to travel distances that are longer than appropriate to get from A to B, and to design it around people. And then all the other bits fall into place. But it does all go back to the realities of how
You guys don't know that you guys don't know how to brainstorm. Everybody's
I'm
got
sorry, is there something wrong with my comments?
No, no.
I'm sorry.
No,
I
that's
am sorry. I'm happy to go into detail. I work on this all the time. This is what I
Yes.
think about all the time. If
I-
you really want, but I don't think it's valuable right now. I think if you hold those principles, you will get to exactly the sort of things. I'm sorry that I did it wrong.
No,
So
I
I'd like
just
to bring up the one point though, because one of our current realities is that we also the cars are not, you know, autonomous. There are people in the cars, and through most of Reston, we need to use cars. So we also have to figure out a way that we're not going to create so much traffic that we're incapable of via a car getting from one side of Reston to the other. I mean, that, you know, that's just a simple reality.
So does anybody have some other comments? I don't see anybody's hands up.
Tammy has a physical hand up.
Oh, Tammy?
Yeah, Rob, would you mind putting your sketch up, please?
Sure. I'm going to ask Jose to do that.
Thank you.
He's my technical guru tonight.
Thank you. I'm really, I'm liking this. I love the detail you have in here. I'm ecstatic about the new pedestrian bike bridge to the east. My concern and my question was on the west side, you show bike only. And right now it is pedestrian only. And that side, that west side of the bridge, the actual guard to prevent you from falling down onto the tollway is in horrific shape. Is that a VDOT repair? It's going over, it's a VDOT, right? It's a VDOT to repair that. Who's responsible for keeping that in proper shape? It's rusted out, it's dangerous, it's scary.
I'll let Mark answer that maintenance part of the question, but to answer your first question, so today it's a combined shared path, pedestrian trail and bike trail on the west side. This particular sketch just kind of honored that and focused just a little bit more about the connectivity on the east side. But I mean, ideally, you'd want both on both sides. So you'd love to, improve that and have, the same kind of same thing going on both sides.
Right.
And that there is some, that bridge I did notice is under disrepair. I mean, it's in the airport authority right away, but I do think that's
what my question was. Is that a federal thing or is that a VDOT thing?
I think it's more of a VDOT bridge, but
do you know, Mark? Do you know, Mark, the answer to that?
Well, in terms of the maintenance of the bridge?
Yes.
Yeah, that would be VDOT.
Okay.
If Kevin is here. What I was going to say, though, to your other question is that we don't have any facilities that are off-road where we would explicitly restrict pedestrians. So effectively what's across the bridge right now is a shared use path.
Correct.
If there was not an opportunity to expand it to have separated facilities, it would be a shared use path across the bridge. I think, Rob, in this drawing, would that be a fair assessment?
Yes.
Okay,
So I don't
and
think
so
we'd be restricting pedestrians. I think they'd just be sharing.
Cor- I understand that. I just wanted to make a point. I'm going somewhere with this. So on that west side, which woo, we have some way to get across the DTR. Yay. Well, let's all be so excited about that. It's in bad repair. It's super narrow. It is, you're talking about pedestrians going north-south. You're talking about bikes going north-south, all on this freaking falling apart, tiny, narrow little place. It is not acceptable. It is not, will not work.
I have an idea. I have an idea.
Wait a minute. Can I finish this?
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm loving the idea of twin things on each side. We might be able to solve the west side width by taking some of the width of Wiehle altogether, shifting the lanes completely east and putting a bike lane where now there is the outside travel lane going south. We might be able to do that on the west side. So if you shifted everything else over, we might be able to accommodate at least one comfortable going across the bridge, but it would have to be on the west side because that's where the existing only walkway is now. I guess your other choice would be to whack off the complete west side pedestrian bike, get across and shift everything to the east side and get stuff actually on the bridge service as it exists, since we can't cantilever. So my issue is, and I haven't, spoken up because we can't even get a crossing funded. This idea of this other stuff is our fabulous ideas. I brought up this stuff of air rights way back. I don't know, what was it, 09, when we were doing the 5-year phase 1, and I was laughed out of the room because nobody wants to pay for that. And if we are just brainstorming and it's wishville, there's a lot of things that can be done, but I'm beat up and realistic that we have no money to spend for almost anything. We can't get a stoplight. So how are we going to effectively make Campus Commons successful by having connectivity? And then we're bringing in new residents to Campus Commons, 6,200 cars. We're going to have car traffic. We can want to have bike traffic and pedestrians, but their own analysis, and they made it as small as they could, came up with 6,200. I mean, that's a lot of traffic coming into Reston, and it's got to come and go from some place. So, and that's not bikes and that's not pedestrians, that's cars. So I'm just trying to be a little bit realistic. I really think Rob's sketch has a lot going for it. I'm ecstatic not to see a pork shop on the west side of Wiehle and have a crossing there, because I know the Campus Commons wants direct access from the subway into their property, to and from their property. The midline doesn't have a lot of like the high-rise part of the whole area is really on the Comstock side on the west. Midline doesn't have high-rises per se. They're more mid-rises and townhomes, and then on the very corner of Sunset and Wiehle, there is a commercial set, and and there are going to be some restaurants, on the lower reaches of some of the multifamily residential, but it's primarily residential in Midline and with restaurants. And then we're supposed to have a grocery store. Can't find one that will sign a lease there. And there's supposed to be assisted living above the grocery. So wow, I think we might have maxed out our assisted living, you know, need. Who knows? But anyway, that's the big draw is going to be over on Comstock's north side. We don't know what they're going to do on the south side, but we know the north side is going to have a movie theater and a very pretty plaza and hotel with condos above the hotel. And
Can somebody bring up the map that can show that and point it out on the map?
Yeah.
So where are you talking about?
Okay. That if somebody can use their cursor, go back it out a little bit so we can see the corner of Sunset and, okay, that L-shaped building right on the corner, that's a hotel with condos above it. And then on Sunset in the corner, keep going right there a little bit further, that's the theater, isn't it, Rob? That's the theater. The middle,
Yes,
between the L and the theater, and there's more in there than just a theater. That middle building is office. And then if you come back toward the pink building, come south, that, yes, that's, that is like, what the hell is that going to be? I think it's residential. So, and we know what's going on in Comstock on the deck of the parking garage. So if you jump across the street now coming east, yes, this is where the commercial is, this building. And then if you come toward the tollway, the only thing that's remotely high, keep coming, keep that building, that's the only thing that's remotely high. This go back toward where the blue, yeah, that building is townhouses with retail on the first floor. And then as you come east from there, this is all residential with some retail, not much. Go across the street towards Sunset. Go across, yeah, that's got some retail. This is residential. So it's not a lot of retail here. The big fancy nightlife stuff is Comstock across the street. Now there will be restaurants and stuff, but that's it. And so
why is the supermarket not done well? I mean,
they can't get anybody to sign a lease. Supermarkets need parking. Supermarkets do not locate in areas with no parking, and there's no parking here, or very, very limited parking. The parking that exists is needed for the thing on the back. If you go back to the map, see where that looks like a blue thing on the yes, keep going, next building toward the fire station on the corner. Yeah, that's the assisted living. Caddy corner from the fire station where the sirens go off at least once an hour. So, you know,
so the Safeway that we have is really critical for all these people to be able to get to.
100%. Your Safeway at South Lakes is the only game in town. This grocery store at Midline was supposed to handle, believe it or not, the Tall Oaks loss of a grocery. They were going to walk from Tall Oaks to this grocery store. Now there is none because there's no grocery chain. The only one that has not been approached, and this is my knowledge and what was presented to planning and zoning more than a year ago, is Lidl LIDL that just came into Sterling, into where Shoppers used to be. They're open today.
That's Lidl.
Okay, thank you. Lidl is the only one that I'm aware of. They've asked Trader Joe's, Giant, Safeway, you know, Plaza America. They're not going to put another grocery within blocks of where they, you know, Whole Foods is there. They asked Aldi's.
Okay.
Aldi's, there's no parking. So
okay,
we're really screwed. Yeah. So that's the essence of what's going on in this area. But we do have to get people across this tollway, and we do have to get bicyclists across without killing them. And
So that was my question for Rob. If we could go back to the picture, again, brainstorming here. I I liked this view too. If, I don't want to be realistic at all. I want to brainstorm on it. And I think you could fit a walkway right where the current walkway is on the west side and take some of the lane for a bike path as well, so that you have exactly what you have on the right-hand side, on the left-hand side, and take away, a turn lane, you take away one of those, extra, there's 5 lanes there right now. Take one of those and use it for the people. I like what Fanula said, safety first, and let's think about how all these different people are going to be using the space. That makes sense to me. But is there, can we do both sides? Because ideally that would be, that might incentivize people to ride their bike to a grocery store or something that's made over on the other side in Midtown.
Well, we need a grocery first.
Well, I know.
I take your point. But it's not a laughing matter.
No,
this is a critical error, that there's nobody gonna be a grocery there unless somebody has an independent grocer, unless Lidl comes forward or something changes. It's really, and the parking is the issue. And this is why Tammy is so awful on P&Z and everywhere I go. Do not get rid of parking. You might want to bike and walk, but if you don't have the parking areas, we have terrible weather, we have hot, we have cold, we have old people, we have young people, we have multiple people. Not everybody can ride and walk. So we do have to have this.
Clarify, there is parking here. It's shared parking between the residents and the grocery store, which means that there's still parking for the grocery store. We have plenty of examples in this area of grocery stores in more urban settings like this. We have a Whole Foods and a Wegmans and Tyson's. We have a Trader Joe's in Bethesda. We have a Trader Joe's in Clarendon and in Alexandria. There are lots of opportunities for these types of grocery stores to go in. My understanding on the site was that they did have a grocery store at one point, and their development got delayed. They lost the grocer, and then the Amazon National Landing thing happened, and now JBG Smith, who owns those parcels, is basically solely focused down in Alexandria and Arlington right now, trying to deliver for Amazon. So at this point, they're not building these buildings tomorrow right here, in part because of all of those issues. But they did at one point have a grocer here, and I believe they didn't. There was some issue with the deadlines for getting the building in place, and the grocer moved out. But the grocer at that point knew how much parking was going to be there. I don't think that was the issue. So
well, we were told, we were told at a meeting that dearth of parking was an issue, and it is shared parking.
Okay.
So
right.
let's
move off the topic. Okay, sorry, Rob and I both heard it. We know it's an issue, and thank you for bringing it up and a concern. And Mark, thanks for your comments on that as well. Rob, can you answer my question on the whether or not we can safely add?
No, I think both you and Tammy had a great idea. On the west side, I think there's some reduction of width that can be happening on the bridge that could actually open up and expand the walkway and the bike lane there. This sketch was trying to be more focused just on the intersection itself and just trying to show how we can get a more narrower crossing, a safe crossing. A lot of these modern crossings at the curb returns are flared out and very pedestrian friendly, and then when that's either it's more like the colors or textures people, when you get to an intersection, maybe it's a little bit of different texture or whatever. Everybody just knows that there's a difference, and then the cars are being more reactive to as people approach. So, you know, a lot of detail missing from the sketch, but just the notion of it gets back to the road diet, to give it a little bit of narrowness, actually making it a safer crossings is possible. There's a YouTube video. It's a 2-minute 45-second YouTube video that if you all would be interested in seeing, it's not I don't know, Jose, do we have the ability to do that?
I think I tried it once and it worked. So, you know, yeah, I'm happy to put it up.
What I was hoping, this was a firm that does a lot of pedestrian design from Maryland, and they're nationally, and they're well known for being some of the experts in the field. And I found a video that it doesn't quite meet the need or intent here at our crossing, but boy, it shows the thought process real quickly of how they solved a problem in a very effective way. And I just thought it might help people understand. And this is where Mark and Tom Bashadny's consultants will probably find themselves doing something in a similar manner, just in terms of the thought process that goes into these types of studies. So I don't know if it'll come with video or the audio. But what this is, let's see. So this is a site in Florida. This intersection happens to be at a roundabout, so that's why it's not directly related. But what it's trying to then do is zooms in on a particular intersection, and it basically starts to say, here's our problem. We have all this traffic and all these competing interests and all this potential points of conflict. And it tries to just walk through very quickly. Here's the intersection as it exists today. Here are all the conflicts of all the vehicles going on, and all the potential points of conflicts between pedestrians and bicyclists and cars. And so their answer to this was to take this kind of 4-lane roadway and give it a bit of a road diet. You'll see that here in a second, but they're basically looking at sight lines, and they're trying to suggest what's going to make this area safer. So one of the things they decided to do was, let's take those on-road bike lanes and let's move those off the road and push those back. So they made the lanes narrower, and then they moved bike lanes off behind the curb along with pedestrians to make it safer for those users. So then they went in and explored, okay, now how can we get people to cross this intersection? And then now they're just taking it and putting in that curvilinear form only because it's on a curved roadway. But here's where they'll show you the finished product of how it actually functions. And this is where the color coding comes in between bike lanes and pedestrian lanes, and maybe some surface treatment where you get to an intersection, vehicles know to slow down because they're approaching intersections, and then they know hopefully when to stop for pedestrians. And obviously there would be some signalization involved in this, but I just thought it was a pretty clever graphic of a way to show how they solved a problem and how other parts of the country are doing this, and how some of the real design professionals that do this every day for a living have really gotten pretty creative and have solved problems. And a lot of it is just continuity. It's make the bike lanes continuous and consistent, make the pedestrian paths continuous and consistent. I love the idea earlier that Michelle had to separate those pedestrian and bikes. Absolutely, where there's room, let's definitely do that. So I don't know, hope you all didn't mind that. I just thought that was one of the better examples I had seen.
Rob, we didn't mind it at all. That's exactly what this meeting's for.
Rob, is it going across the Wiehle Bridge? Do you think, and this would be for VDOT folks too, I'm so concerned about the bicyclists being safe. can we put up Jersey barriers between bikes and cars so that they can be safe? I'm with Fiona and Michelle and Rob. The idea of separating pedestrians and bikes to me is paramount. There's nothing more terrifying than walking along and all of a sudden a bike goes right by you and you're like, oh my God. But, and this is commented constantly on the rest in pathways, but is there room on the bridge? How much horizontal space does a Jersey barrier take up? Or is there another type of structure that could be put in that takes up less horizontal space than a Jersey barrier?
Well, the good thing about a Jersey barrier is it really separates and provides that nice physical barrier, and so it's a great deal of protection. You see a lot of these other,
Right.
loose,
No.
delineators that aren't a protection. They're just kind of a delineator.
Yeah.
So the Jersey barrier is one of the things that does take up the least amount of room and is most effective for that structural
Okay.
separation. They're not the best looking things though.
Are they like 3 feet wide or 30 inches or?
I think
you
at the
know?
base they're about 2 to 3 feet wide at the base, and then
32 inches and a quarter.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. I'm not asking how you found that out.
I had to look up a Jersey barrier. I didn't know what it looked
Okay,
like.
okay, thank you.
Is there something prettier? They are quite ugly. What about just some potted plants?
No, they have to be secure. But hey, you know what? They can be painted. They could be, I love the idea of what Rob's idea of color coding so that the motorists know who's going where. That's really critical.
Yeah.
But going back to Michelle's point, we actually in our design we sometimes design planters that they could be narrow. They could be narrow in width and maybe taller and deeper, but the planter along with soil that can provide at least some protection. And so it is you could look at planters a different way. It's just that to get a real vehicular protection that's going to withstand an impact of a vehicle, that's where you get into these Jersey barriers, or those concrete kind of walls that you see along the highways a lot, that they're just an economical way. They're reinforced with metal and can really withstand a vehicular hit.
This would be between the pedestrians and the bicyclists, not the
No,
bicyclists and
but-
the cars, right?
No, the bicycle to the car.
Oh, I liked what Rob did with the trees. I like the trees.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
well,
Yeah.
if we have the room.
Yeah, well, I hope we have the room, but yeah, I speak now as predominantly walking, but I also remember riding my bike when I lived in DC all the time. And pedestrians are not very great to be near either, because you never
agree.
know where they're going to go. They might just turn left when you think they're going right. So it would be good to keep them away from bikers for the bikers' sake too.
I recall concrete block planters coming into play when there were these targeted bombings of, I think it was synagogues. And then all of a sudden, they had Jersey barriers originally because that was needed immediately. And then they switched to, concrete, really nice looking planters. I'm just trying to think, if you're going to do something and we're going to have it for a while, we might as well have something nice. I see somebody else's hand up, a fresh voice.
Yeah, this is Mike McDermott. We've been at this for about an hour now, and I guess I just need someone to bring the strings together for me in terms of coming into this conversation, doing what we're doing now. Where are we going? What's the intent of this? Because while I like the ideas, I just don't know what to do with it. And I need to start being able to bring the strings together here. So could someone do that for me? Just kind of summarize where we are and where we're going type of thing?
Sure. Rob, you want to handle, or you want me to handle?
Well, I'll give it a try and then you can help me out here. So Mike, that's actually a really good segue. I think we were starting to, run a little long with some of the thoughts where great ideas. The intent was to let's get a lot more of our thoughts out on, I guess we all could vent a little bit more than we have up until now. But now we can maybe circle back to where we left off from last week, or the last meeting, when Jose sent out the summary of what we tried to capture as everybody's comment when we did the kind of straw poll, went around to each and everybody and tried to just get your opinion on what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts about either the options that were presented? What all other alternatives do you have? And what are some of your real concerns? And people did a great job of being pretty succinct and articulate, and I think we captured that, and then we've asked people to weigh in further if we didn't capture your thoughts correctly, or if you wanted to embellish or add a little bit more. So to me, when you summarize what we heard at the last meeting, you get a very quick synopsis of where this group really stands. I mean, if you just go down through the list, the majority of the group, has certain favors of the underpass scenario. There's certain parts of the group that had certain options of the at-grade crosswalk were okay, and then I don't think anybody really gave a thumbs up at all to any of the above road crossings of the bridge options. So this is starting to kind of come together, at least as a study group. Again, we're not trying to get to one singular voice. We're really just trying to provide the Board of Supervisors some further direction as to where the community, where this study group has seen things with the information that we have at hand. And as we're finding out, there's going to be a lot more information down the road that's probably going to be, it'll be more informed or more informing of those who are making the decisions at that point. But this is, we're providing some critical community input here at this time. So now what to discuss is, where do we go from here? How do we take our thoughts? How do we put it into a synopsis and deliver that?
Well, so the reason, Mike, again, thank you for saying for wrapping it together. I could talk about this and just go on and on for a long time with everyone envisioning the future. We did finish our last meeting by folks giving their perspective. And what we tried to do when we sent out the final note was or the note before this meeting, we tried to capture your thoughts. If your thoughts aren't captured there in total, you need to respond to Jose with what they are. This piece we were asked to do by Walter, basically, who said, envision what you would want this to look like if you had your druthers, give me some guidance in how you would like this to go. How you would like the intersections to look like. And so that was the impetus for doing this. This also will give you more information to write your summary of where you think this study group should go, what you think the Board of Supervisors should do. And Mike, and now it's informed me a lot more that, if we can't have an underpass because it's kicked out, if we can't have, if the bridge is just going to get in everybody's sight lines, well, this sort of pushed us to envision a different type of future. And Rob's drawing, which we asked everybody to bring drawings, do research, think of other things like the big park that Maurice talked about at the beginning. If you have an idea like that, let's turn it over. Let's throw it out there. Let's see if it works. Ideally, one of those really expensive, amazing things would be what we do, and there'd be a giant park. But if what we get is, you know, a really cool drawing that, you know, Rob tried to put together some of those thoughts that we had. And what we get is a multimodal system where, you know, on both sides, you know, I think we're trying to find a happy medium. And I love the fact that he presented that as an option, because now as a visual person, I can see that idea coming around. And it doesn't scare me. Whereas before, without pictures or knowing what you were talking about, I think the video, all those things were really helpful. If anybody else has anything like that that they think is, you know, earth shattering or different, you know, we'd want to see it. That was the purpose of having this, is so that we can finally solidify our personal thoughts, write up our thinking, and each one, you know, each of us will have a paragraph on what. I mean, that would be my thinking on the last couple steps here. Tammy?
Thank you. I would like to thank you, Mike McDermott, for your question and your comment. I would like to go to Brian and Ken, the representatives for Cornerstones, and have you very precisely tell us, so that when we make our comments, we know. I want to know what exactly you are not the proffer for the overpasses, bridges, and the tunnel stuff. I want to know what your other proffers are for that were approved with your project for connectivity. You've mentioned that the Sunrise Wiehle intersection, and correct me because I'm repeating what I think you said, but I want to be sure it's accurate for everyone. That you have to do before you have any occupancy of any of the projects other than the 2 existing buildings that are on the site now. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Do you have any other required proffers for connectivity? Is there anything at the Dulles Tollway at all?
We have the proffer for the crosswalk at the toll road ramps, which is subject to this study group's recommendation and ultimately the board's approval. We have the crosswalk across Wiehle at Sunrise Valley Drive. We have the elimination of the islands at Sunrise Valley Drive and reconfiguration of the intersection. We have bike lanes along the frontage of Wiehle. We have a sidewalk and the cycle track configuration along Sunrise Valley Drive on that portion of the property. There are crosswalks at Campus Commons and
Crosswalks of where? Across what?
across Campus Commons Drive and across Sunrise
Okay.
Valley Drive at the Campus Commons intersection.
Okay. Do you do you have a
So, I mean,
stoplight anywhere that on the other loop of Upper Lake?
yeah, I think I don't want to give you
There is a traffic signal at
incorrect
the other
information, but
Upper Lake and Campus Commons
Yeah,
intersection.
you put a
Yeah, I was-
stoplight there too.
Yes,
I
they
thought-
will have crosswalks on all 4 legs as well.
Okay, so maybe we should have a list of all those things so we know what components have been required with your approval.
yeah, I mean that list is in the proffers.
Yeah,
I know,
yes.
but can you send it to this group so that we have it as we write up our thoughts? We have that to look at, consider as we make any drawings. As you know, when things go before the Board of Supervisors, they're going to look at it in their land use committee and discuss it. And as much detail as we can give as a group is going to be helpful to them. So if we have the accurate thing, that would be helpful.
Let me ask a question here. And show of hands on this. What I was thinking of is we would all write up our separate ideas and share them at the next meeting. What you would, basically what we wrote up about you, you would take that and then write your thoughts down for the next meeting. And then that would be kind of our final, we could put that together with your own words. How do we feel about that?
Yeah, Lori, I'll just quickly weigh in here. So, along those same lines, I think what we're saying is I think it's going to be effective to capture every individual's point of view on this issue, like we have already done from the summary of the last meeting. So if you could take a look at that, embellish on it if you want, or make sure it's accurate, make sure it captures what you feel you'd like to have captured. And then I think the deliverable to the Board of Supervisors could actually just be given that information, maybe with a little opening or some type of lead in or intro, but we don't want to try to summarize it or take words out of everybody's individual comments. I think it's a quick read right now, and I think if we keep it a quick read, someone could look at that, review it, and say, I generally see where the sense of the study group is right now.
So I have one point on that though, since the study group is not incredibly formal in the sense that we've nominated members. When we started this, we had a much larger list and a larger gathering. Today, it's not, we have 19 people, not all of which are community members. So how do we also make sure though that, we're not just limiting it to the people who are here right now today? And how do we reach a broader audience? Because, I feel that I just want to be sure that we're not missing out on some of the voices, especially of the folks who live right in this area and who will use it the most.
So Michelle, good question. I mean, one of the things we do have to be concerned about, though, if someone hasn't consistently been a part of this group,
Right.
they could have an uninformed opinion or not be privy to a lot of the information. So we're not going to open it up to everybody in the community. That's not the intent.
The meetings have been recorded, so you actually can go back and listen.
No, I understand that, but it's not meant to be like opened up to everybody in the community. Right now, it's those people who stuck with the study group, I think, whose opinions matter the most at this point. Not that no one else's opinions matter, but it's an educated opinion at this point that the people that have been listening and sticking with it. But again, anybody that originally signed up that's on the study group is still able to participate if they wish, but they need to then weigh in at this point.
I think I can chime in here. I completely understand where Rob is going with this. He wants it. There are so many nuances in these conversations, and we've been here for months, well, over a year now, for 2 hours every time. And, everybody's who's here has really worked hard to be here doing this. But if we want to get that type of opinion and make sure we canvass some other opinions, then there's no reason why, we do this all day long anyway, talk to our neighbors, pull in the SOS group and say, hey, I would, want to give a quick community meeting. This is what, and then people ask me those kind of tough questions. And if they get too in depth, I can say, well, we've already studied that. Well, that won't work. Or, I can answer them and handle it individually. And then when I write up my summary, I can say in my summary, I have canvassed my 100 SOS direct members, and 58% of them are in alignment with the thinking below. And I think that's the way to handle that, to make sure we do get that opinion that Michelle's concerned about, but we don't get that bogged down by trying to please, start from square one with everybody. We get an informed opinion. Does that work for you guys?
I think we should at least, though, make sure that everyone who signed up originally is aware that this is the plan. Because if they were on this originally, they should be allowed to voice an opinion. And given that every meeting was recorded and is available online, they are capable of being just as informed. Perhaps not actively and participating live when the conversation was occurring. They could very much get the information needed.
Michelle, I agree. And I think I was just going to say a couple of things. First is, if there's someone who has been following along and watching these meetings and simply has a conflict at this time, I know there are people that have had conflicts and can't make it, they can always email their information to Jose and say, I've been watching the meetings, I've spoken to people, I'd like my information included. I think that is, if somebody's on the list and they've been getting the emails and they've been involved, I think that makes sense. But the other thing is, there is the email address that Jose set up. And Jose, I don't want to get it wrong, so if you want to mention that email again, but anybody can email there, and I don't see why, if we got some emails to that address, that couldn't be included as, study group participants thought this. We also got additional input from other members of the community, and that is attached. I don't see why other documents that go there couldn't be attached. But I think that it sounds like what Rob and Lori, you both proposed, makes a lot of sense to me. And I think if we all agree not to keep this not to a 16-page theses, that we can do exactly that, Rob, which is put all this information, everybody's own words as they write them, in a document. And if the study group wants a short summary at the top, that's fine. But what we would add would simply be the study group was formed on this date. They met, 14, 15 times on a monthly basis, and but we do have about 20 people here total, which I think is similar to what we've had in the last several meetings. I'm not separating out people like myself from the community members here, but in that number. But we definitely want to get everybody's voice heard, and we want to make sure that is not edited or
Right.
or changed in any way.
So let's just make sure that when you do send in your final version, it's got your name on it and your address on it. We agreed that would be part of that process. Do you think it would be helpful to just get to, I mean, because we've all heard different things, and every time we get together, I learn something new. And so do you think it would be helpful to just get the last meeting where we all read these together, out loud to each other and share them that way? And then if you want to rewrite it and send your final in, you can?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Maurice, what do you think?
Hello?
I think we could just send in what we have concluded in very condensed form, no more than a page, single spaced. And that would be it. I mean, to read it to everybody. I think then what we can do is have Jose scan them in and send them out to everybody. We can read them at our leisure.
Oh, well, then I'm gonna change my mind. You know that.
Lori, we do have a attendee that I brought up as a panelist, Neil Medoff. He wanted to make some comments. You are unmuted.
Okay, thank you. We're husband and wife, Neil and Carol Medoff, and we've been listening, and I would say we would be very much effective. We just live 2 blocks from the area you're talking about. And I would say you need to have, I agree with Lori, you need to have more community input. Most of the community around here is not aware what's going on in your meetings or what you're deciding. And they are the ones, when you're finished deciding everything, that have to live with your decisions. And there definitely should be more community outreach before anything is decided upon. Because, as I said, they're the ones that are affected by this. And because of COVID, we couldn't have meetings like we have in the past. As you remember, when the community did turn out before COVID, there was quite a large number of people showing up at the Reston Association meeting. And that means that people really are interested, but because of the way things are set now with Zooming rather than getting together at the Reston Association, they're not really able to have the kind of, that it's not conducive to have the kind of participation we had before. But as I said, they really, the rest of the community should understand what's going on here before any final decisions are made, or even before something is sent to the Board of Supervisors. That's all I'm saying. There needs to be more of an outreach. I mean, you talked about what you're discussing. You could make, photos of your ideas. They can be handed out or somehow distributed to the public. I mean, people here, my husband was saying, I wasn't up here at the time, that someone was suggesting, for instance, bike lanes, taking away space from Wiehle Avenue for the very underutilized bike lanes that we have here in Reston, to go to the grocery. They're going to take a bunch of packages from the grocery on their bikes. I don't think that's realistic. So, I mean, there's things here being suggested that do affect us who live right near this area, that more than just two people from the community should be aware of. And that's all I'm saying. And I know that Mr. Walker would like to just send everything off right away. But that's not fair to the people who live in this area. And that's my only comment. Just please reach out to the rest of the community.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you. Okay. This is a good meeting. We have, okay, Tammy.
One other thing that I wanted to bring up is, regardless of the final disposition of the physical lanes on the ground and the separation of the modes of travel, one thing I wanted to really emphasize was we need a crack signal timing schedule for this area, because it is, as Carol Medoff just brought up, the amount of traffic on Wiehle, it is a major artery north-south in Reston. And if you can have the most fabulous layout on the planet and slow your traffic down, but if you gridlock it and you back it up all the way to Barron Cameron, it's a fail. So we know we don't want to speed across the bridge and fly around the circle, the intersections on two wheels, but vehicular traffic does have to move during rush hours, and that will be predicated on a very sophisticated timing device. And that, VDOT has been so much better recently in timing, but for years we would go crazy in Reston with badly timed lights and people sitting there waiting forever and no traffic, and then short cycles when there's lots of traffic and you're like going, oh my God, and you're sitting there forever. So
you're right. Thank you.
We have
Tammy.
to compromise between,
that's a good point. That's a good point.
all modes of traffic being.
So I did want to address Carol's concern. This is not the be all and end all. This is but one task not even a task force, a study group that is addressing one of our developers. And this is a small piece of the big puzzle. What we did tonight which was not really what this group was tasked to do originally. But when we came down to looking at what we were tasked to do, it wasn't, as Rob said, we were pretty much in alignment that a bridge was not in what we wanted to do. So we decided to roll out and envision the future and what it would look like. So these are ideas. There are going to be more task force. There's going to be more traffic studies. Mark, you can probably tell us what some of those are and when they're going to start. They're going to have more community input. So I don't want you to be concerned that what we do here is going to be the be all and end all. This is just 27 very passionate people, some of which, like myself, are trying to get the pulse of the community as they do it, so that I don't just speak with my voice, but I speak with some other, with the SOS community. So there are other folks here who might want to do the same thing and acknowledge that as well, so that their words might have a little bit more bend to them. But I just wanted to you not to be concerned that this is the be all and end all.
Hey, Lori, Dave Bryant has his hand up.
Dave.
Dave, you're muted.
Too many buttons to figure out on these machines. Hey, everybody. I've been listening to some excellent conversations this evening about some very global streetscape issues that ought to be taken up with Wiehle Avenue. I would love if Rob's hand sketch could be brought back up for a few minutes to talk about the at-grade crossing.
Yeah, just give me one moment. Let me try to.
No worries.
I would actually like it to be sent out to us, Jose, when you get a chance after this meeting. If you don't mind, Rob.
Yeah, I'm happy to send this out to the group.
No, I don't
And
mind.
we'd like Rob to autograph it because we're planning to sell it on eBay later.
I'm
You
sorry.
you need to add a yellow line on the
I'm sorry, it
west
looks
side.
whited out on the screen.
Okay, for us old guys, can you zoom in just there you go. You're getting a little better. There you go.
Keep going.
Okay, that's good right there. Most of us developers up and down this corridor in the proffers that have been written so far is to work with VDOT to restripe the lanes, narrow the lanes up and put the bike lane on Wiehle Avenue and not separate it and put it somewhere behind the curb. Rob, I love the sketch, what you've done, but I'd really like to see an alternate sketch where you actually put the bike lane out where everybody has proffered it so far. Good, bad, or indifferent. And maybe I'm hoping Bruce Wright's on this conversation tonight, so he can chime in on what this intersection looks like. I love that graphic from Washington State. What did you say it was?
I believe so. Yeah.
Little confusing from the air to try and figure everything out, but I love the use of the color coordinations on it, actually physically on the ground. But what I'm seeing here is that the study group is leaning towards an at-grade crossing, good, bad, or indifferent. I mean, we've all kind of really come to the conclusion that the bridge crossings don't work. Do we recommend the county not to get a lot of money from Cornerstone? It may be.
I think I'm going to jump in real fast. That's mistaken. I don't think we've all agreed that at-grade crossing is the way to go. I think
Okay.
instead the majority said that they're still in support of the tunnel. If there was a majority vote on anything, it was tunnel.
Okay, my apologies then. But with the narrowing of the lanes, getting rid of extra lanes, you know, and I look north of on Wiehle Avenue, north of Sunset Hills Road, and VDOT has mysteriously narrowed Wiehle Avenue down to one lane with dedicated left turn lanes. It tells me that we may have too many lanes here. That traffic patterns are changing. There was an article published earlier and that I was able to get my hands on where Lauren Mallerup, who pretty big deal over at VDOT, is now working on the stuff down at Crystal City, and they're acknowledging that traffic patterns have the total vehicles per day, regardless of development, are falling. So it's an interesting phenomenon. So it's really time to narrow these lanes up and slow people down. I really like the idea that these are narrowing up their curb returns and getting rid of auxiliary lanes. Well done, Rob.
Wow, thanks, Dave.
You know, is there a way that we could see what the other intersection looks like as planned at Sunrise Valley and Wiehle? Like, or just like what that little part right before the turn onto Wiehle looks like? Because I think that, Brian, I don't know if you have that readily available, or what are you planning? And then, you know, what would you be turning onto?
Sunrise, can I step in here real quick for a second? Because as the developer that helped to build Reston Station Phase 1, the garage, there was a study group that, and the document was called RMAG, and it was for the Reston Metro Access Group. And in that study group, it called for narrowing up those slip ramps up at Sunrise and Wiehle Avenue. And we followed the guidelines of the RMAG study. We narrowed them up, and I cannot tell you how many complaints we got, how many times the commercial vehicles ran over top the curves because they did not want to slow down going around those corners. And unless you get rid of these slip ramps, you're going to be creating a lot of problems.
So just to clarify, the Campus Commons development is offered to remove the slip ramps.
Okay.
Redesign the intersection. There'll be 2 southbound right turn lanes, 2 southbound left turn lanes. They're shifting the median over. And then there'll be an extra right turn lane from westbound Sunrise Valley in front of their site onto northbound Wiehle.
Just a really dumb debate question. If I go up 14th Street, where there's an enormous amount of traffic pre-COVID, hopefully soon post-COVID, I don't see any dual right turn lanes anywhere. So I really struggle with the whole concept of dual right turn lanes.
That was a challenge. One of the challenges here is that, as many of you I'm sure know, a great deal of the traffic along both sides of Sunrise Valley is turning onto Wiehle Avenue because Wiehle Avenue does not extend south of here. So the traffic, all of that traffic on Wiehle has to disperse onto Sunrise Valley. And so we had to look at some creative solutions. One of the things that we worked with VDOT on was setting it up so that there'll be green arrows and red arrows so that it'll be, to Tammy's point, that when traffic should not be going, it will be safer for pedestrians, and when traffic should be going, it will allow a higher percentage of traffic to move through the intersection more quickly. But I would be glad to work with Jose to get this group that plan, which is in the concept plan for Campus Commons, as well as their approved offer statement. That's actually all on the county's website, but I can find that link and working through Jose, get that out to all of you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Yeah, Michelle, I was looking for that plan. I don't seem to have that.
Yeah, Brian, do you have the visual of that? Just so we can see, because we're just looking at like one intersection, but how does it all flow?
Yeah, I mean, I have it. If I can somehow share my screen, I have it up. Or if Jose can just pull it off the county's website and
I'll
pull it
give you the
up.
presenter role. Probably be quicker. You
All
should
right.
have it.
Hang on. All right. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
Yes.
So I've zoomed in a little bit to not focus on the toll road ramp area in Wiehle, but in this area here is the intersection of Wiehle and Sunrise Valley Drive. So what Mark was just describing, if you can see my cursor, is the southbound lanes, or the area of the southbound lanes would be widened. The median would be shifted to the east. There would be dual left turns going east on Sunrise Valley Drive, dual right turns to go west on Sunrise Valley Drive. And then the other change, in addition to the removal of the slip ramps and the pedestrian islands and everything here, would be the dual right turn lanes here from westbound Sunrise Valley Drive onto northbound Wiehle. So this is what's approved as part of our CDP FTP, and we are proffered to build prior to the first occupancy permit, RUP or non-RUP, for the proposed development, subject to VDOT approval.
And is that with those two turn lanes onto Wiehle, are those both no right on red, or are they free flow in some fashion?
They're not free flow. Mark, I'll defer to Mark because he knows more, I think, about how the county and VDOT were planning to
It would be,
to
they would both
signalize
be no
everything.
right on, they would both be no right on red, but they would be overlaps. So when traffic was on Wiehle was making the left turn onto Sunrise Valley, traffic from the Sunrise Valley side would be able to make that right turn as well. So there would be a significant amount of time where there would be green arrow there, but it's not free flow. And one of the first things we identified looking at this site was that the free flow right turns, aside from being dangerous for pedestrians because you have to, as a pedestrian, stand out there and hope the car stops, was also that that the free flow movements were treated differently depending on different drivers. Some yielded, some kept moving. Some of the traffic making a left from eastbound Sunrise Valley cut into the right-hand lane, cutting off the free flow traffic. So there was a lot of challenges in terms of that, and the hope is that this makes it better. Some of you might remember at one point there were some signals in the islands, and those were removed, I think, to Dave's point, because they kept getting hit. And so that's why we went to this solution in part. But realistically, those types of channelization islands are not generally constructed today with new roads. If you go out to a newer road, let's say in Prince William or Loudoun County, where they're building these types of roads today, they're usually not building channelization islands. They're not considered particularly pedestrian friendly, and they also encourage highway speeds. And while we want to get the cars through here, we want to also make sure that we're designing the roads in a way that keep the drivers at a reasonable speed. So these roads are signed at 35 miles an hour, so we want people to go more like 35 miles an hour than 50 miles an hour. And narrowing these radii, as Rob mentioned, helps with that.
And then my other
Tammy?
question was on the where you have pedestrian and bike lanes on Sunrise Valley. How are those set up?
So you
Sidewalk?
could sort of see. I don't know who has the screen. Brian, are you?
Yeah, I do.
Can you zoom in? Can you zoom in a little bit? Because I think we
Yeah,
could see a little better, if that's possible.
At one point, I think there was also like a visual of how it might actually look too.
Yeah, there is. These are huge documents, but basically, you see the road, and then there's a row of trees, and then there's what's called a cycle track, which is a two-way separated bicycle facility. It's basically, for
That's
visual sake, a asphalt path that has striping. And then there's another row of trees and then a sidewalk. So there will be separated facilities. This is planned to be the way that the bicycles are set up all the way from South Lakes to Soapstone, or sorry, South Lakes to Edmund Halley at the Reston Town Center Metro. And so there'll be this continuous two-way off-road bike facility on the north side with a separated sidewalk.
I believe Tammy had a question.
Yes, looking at this, I am commenting to Maurice regarding the you wanted a crosswalk across Sunrise Valley right at the eastern intersection with Wiehle. And because of that, the necessity to move traffic that is going on to Wiehle out of off Sunrise so that the SOS people on Upper Lakes can escape from their houses, I would prefer not to have that extra crosswalk unless and until there is a pedestrian bike bridge across the tollway. This doesn't get you anywhere that you can't go. You know, this, does that make sense? You all who live south of Sunrise can walk up to the east, to the west side of Wiehle and cross once and get across the tollway now and get to Metro now. But this doesn't get you anywhere except Campus Commons, which you can get to further east at your stoplight. So I'm concerned about giving you in cars the area to be able to get onto Sunrise to make your move, whether you're going west or whether you're turning north on Wiehle. Does that make sense?
Tammy, I was just gonna say, I couldn't have said that better myself. That was exactly the reason why we didn't, why they're not showing a crosswalk on the east side. There's not one there currently. And looking at the traffic operations, we're always trying to balance all the modes, right? And one of the things was that by adding a crosswalk there, it really made the traffic operations at the intersection challenging because of what I'll say is a rather interesting traffic dynamic here, where a lot of the traffic is going to and from Wiehle Avenue. What I will also note is that there's no access to anything on the south side of Sunrise Valley Drive between Upper Lake and I apologize, the next street to the west, Great Meadows, excuse me. So so you're absolutely right. People will want to cross here, but if we want to stay on the east side and you come up Upper Lake, you can always cross at Campus Commons Drive. Now, to Maurice's point, when there's an extension to midline and a pedestrian demand there, it may make sense to reevaluate that so people from the west can stay on the south side of Sunrise Valley and cross. But we will definitely be able to look at that in the future when a crossing goes in as part of that study to make sure that we have adequate.
I'm going to, if I can jump in one more time on this, I have to support the two-leg crosswalks. When you have crosswalks on every leg of an intersection and you have all these multiple turn lanes, all this is going to do is actually slow down traffic getting through the intersection, because once that PED button's pushed and have to go across that number of lanes, that pedestrian crosswalk takes precedence over everything else. And so, for instance, the Wiehle Avenue crosswalk right there, probably somebody can scream at me, but it's probably 45 to 50 second timeout to allow those pedestrians to cross that lane. If you look at the north-south on Sunrise Valley Drive, you're probably talking 35 to 40 seconds. If you put one on both sides of the intersection, you're actually going to add additional time to the throughput for cars. So going back to Mark's point, you have to balance the two. If you want that versatility, you're gonna lose the throughput for cars. Now I'll take my engineering hat off.
Thanks, Dave. Okay.
Guys, we got 9 minutes. I think it's a good chance to wrap up. We've asked each of you to do some homework, to look at the email that was sent to you with the short summary of what we captured as your preferences, and to revise them and send it back. Rob, you have been asked to send your pictures to this task force, and I would add, can you send that video link as well? I'd like to watch that video. Is there something else that I'm missing that we want to add, that we need so that we can all,
Yes,
okay,
the list of proffers, the list of connectivity proffers from Cornerstone that
okay,
were, yeah, thank you.
okay. So Brian, if you could get that, and Michelle, you had something that you wanted.
Yeah.
I think just to be clear, if I could chime in for a second, I understood that Mark was going to send that link to the group, or send it to Jose to send to the group. I mean, the plans and the proffers are the full scope of what that list of improvements would be.
I can put together the links of the public documents and send this to Jose if there's something more specific. But that would all be in there. All of those.
Well, I think Mark, Tammy was hoping that somebody would pull this together.
Simple and readable,
Yeah,
not 1,000 pages of legalese.
yeah. If you could just make a list of those, like, I
You
think
know,
there's,
stoplight, crosswalk, whatever.
it doesn't seem like a very difficult task, but
Brian, if you have something like that, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
thank you. Was there anything else that that we were supposed to remember to share with each others? And then we will have a meeting where we either share this information or in our write-ups, or we won't.
Is it possible that we could get some of this information, like the different drawings for the intersection? I mean, I use Wiehle Avenue and Sunrise, Sunrise Valley every day. So, and so do all my neighbors. We're severely affected by your decisions and or your recommendations. And so we would appreciate if there's some way that we also can view these drawings. I will tell you, it is such a heavily used road, both of them. No lane should be taken away, certainly not for bike lanes. I assume that the bike lanes are not coming off Sunrise Valley, they're coming off the land that is going to be built on Cornerstone's property.
So, you know what I would do, Carol, is put together your request, and Jose, if you could, in the chat right now, put the email that she should email to say, hey, this is the information I'd like to get. That would be great.
Okay.
And that way we can make sure that if you would like to read some of this information, that it's made available to you.
One thing that was not clear to me, and I wonder if someone could clear it up for me. What is not clear to me is, where is the land for the bike lane on Sunrise Valley coming from?
That land is coming from the development sites. Sunrise Valley is not proposed to get. Sunrise Valley will have the same number of travel lanes as it does today.
Okay.
2 lanes in each direction.
Thank you. That I appreciate. The other thing is, what about on Wiehle Avenue? I heard a discussion about reducing the lanes. Does that mean they're going to make the width of Wiehle Avenue smaller than it is now?
There will be a separate study in the future. This study is only looking at the question of a crossing at Wiehle Avenue and the Dulles Toll Road for pedestrians. In the future, there will be a phase 2, and that will look at the entire Wiehle Avenue corridor and identify what the transportation needs are. And that will start by looking at the vehicular capacity and operations. So,
Mark, thank you so much. We've only got 4 minutes left, and I really want to tie this up. So,
Lori, I want to bring up one point very fast. I'm sorry, but no, do we have in a way that would be readily available for the community, the consultants, review of the different options that were offered? So the bridges and then also the review of the tunnel.
we did. We had it, didn't we, Rob? We had a summary.
Well,
We can include that as well.
so Jose, refresh my memory, but there's a place that we have these drawings and
Yeah.
a repository of sorts that we can direct people to get this information. Is that correct?
We had a share file link that I shared with you guys. I think it expires every 30 days.
Okay.
You can put that on the Hunter Mill land use and zoning page. If that's easier, I'll work with Rob and try to get that online. But yeah, that's where we had most of the. It was just easier to send it to you guys just in case you
Right.
guys needed the slides and stuff. So
I think if we could get that online, that would be great to share it with everyone. And then I think it would also help everyone as we're thinking about what we would what we would recommend to just go back and review what was presented.
It sounds like there's a reason to have another meeting, to read what we are thinking to each other and to make sure we are clarifying these details that we don't want glossed over. So we'll plan on arranging for the next one. We'll get all these emails and links out to each other in the meantime, but we also, each of us, there's an expectation that at the next meeting, you're going to come with your homework done. Okay?
That sounds like a great plan, Lori, to have our homework done and get your comments in advance to Jose. I think that would be helpful to have a summary that we could all review.
Okay. Thank you all for a great meeting. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.